Welcome to this enablement session on SAP NetWeaver Gateway. The agenda for this session is we would be talking about gateway provisioning, where I would give you an introduction to gateway, features of OData and what is OData. Then I'll introduce you to the service builder. We use the RFC ball generator to showcase service builders, how we can build services and the different steps involved in it. Then we take a break for 10 minutes. Then we also, after that, I would show you the gateway modeler, which is available for Eclipse, and how do you import this model into the service builder. And then we open the session for a Q&A for provisioning. Subsequently after the break, we have a session on NetWeaver Gateway Productivity Accelerator. Then we talk about the gateway toolkits for HTML5 and iOS. And we see a demo on this. And then we have a Q&A on consumption. So let's get into the session. So before let me start with the introduction to gateway and why do you need a gateway. So what we have here is what I do is I would show you what is SAP NetWeaver Gateway. I also have a couple of slides on the partner build solution drive, which we are running to encourage partners to build solutions on Gateway. I then give you a brief on OData, just the one slide on OData, and then we'll show you some of the products which use Gateway as part of the solution. So why do you need something like Gateway? So if you look from the new IT approaches or new IT scenarios, you have a lot of new experiences and a lot of new devices. Consumers are innovating. People want to use their own user experience and to do their processes. People would prefer to use Outlook to record time and look at their CRM contacts than use an SAP transaction to see this. You also have a scenario where you have a lot of new developers coming, non-SAP developers who are building better solutions, better UIs. But there is a need for people to use the business data. A lot of decision makers would like to look at the data directly from an SAP system instead of being done through batch processors which are downloaded and so on. Added to these two, you have a situation that in industries, if the IT guys, if you open up the systems, it becomes very complex to manage enterprise systems, and they would like to have their mission critical systems running safely, and they would also like to see deployment of different solutions easy and faster. Now, in this, without Gateway, what used to happen was this. You would have point-to-point solutions which would to connect to the backend business suite. This would increase the complexity, increase the cost of managing, cost of ownership. So what SAP tried to do is have something which is OData, which is compatible to multiple channels. Now, how is OData possible? We have a product, SAP NetWeaver Gateway, which sits between the consumers and the backend business suite, SAP Business Suite, and Gateway generates OData services which can be consumed on multiple experiences, things ranging from browser-based applications to mobile to cloud solutions. What does Gateway bring in? Gateway is providing any environment, any platform, any experience for the front-end app developers or app solutions. It is optimized for user interaction scenarios. Gateway is designed for user-centric applications. It can work with any business suite version. When I say any business suite version, I'm talking any version of business suite from 4.6e and above. And finally, to build or consume OData service, you don't need, the front-end app developers don't need SAP knowledge to build the solutions. Now, what is the vision from SAP for people-centric applications is that everything would be consuming OData or SAP annotations on OData, SAP annotated on the OData services, whether it is from business objects, HANA, B1, or many more products. For Business Suite, SAP Business Suite, we have SAP NetWeaver Gateway, which would take care of this generation of OData service and consumption on people's for consumption of these solutions. Coming to architecture, what is there in SAP NetWeaver Gateway? SAP NetWeaver Gateway is an add-on to SAP NetWeaver up to NetWeaver release 7.3. In NetWeaver release 7.4, Gateway components are part of the NetWeaver release. What is there in Gateway? Gateway provides you tools, basically tools to generate services, which are embedded in the service builder, and also to tools. Also, you could do custom development using service builders. Apart from the tools, Gateway core technology has all the monitoring, security, supportability features. You have the event publishing components, the OData and SAP annotations, or OData frame conversion libraries. And for the data source part, Gateway provides you connectors to BAPIs, RFCs, the business object layer or the ball layer, or from CRM. Similarly, for the SPI layer of PLM and enterprise asset management, and HANA, and of course analytics. From Gateway, we also have plugins for different IDEs bundled in Eclipse, and some for outside of it. And of course, OData, since it's an open standard, there are other plugins available from other sources, and this can also be used to consume an OData service from Gateway. Coming to the SAP mobile platform, how does Gateway fit there? In the SUP or the Sybase Android platform, you have an OData connector, which would be used to connect to an OData feed from NetWeaver Gateway, and this then can be published out to be consumed by different mobile devices. Okay. So let me just spend some time on the partner build solution drive. So what we have done is we started a campaign for the partners to build solutions on using NetWeaver Gateway. It could be any partner. You don't have to be an SAP Partner Edge member. The partner gets benefits out of, like we give you free training, is one of it, free developer licenses, and then of course some marketing and go-to-market support. What is expected from the partner is a SAP NetWeaver Gateway content or an end-to-end solution based on SAP NetWeaver Gateway. What is the timeline for this solution drive? Is the solution drive was kicked off in April 24th. The deadline to sign up for the solution drive is June 30th, and the solution should be certified by end of September, that's 30th of September. And you could use this quick link to or the QR code to register for the campaign and join the campaign. Now let's see one slide on what is OData. OData is SQLite for web. So for example, if if you want to have a mobile app which shows business partners, what OData provides you is that you have a single similar looking URL to navigate through the different OData feeds. So if you want to see a business partner, you could do a get on business partner. Now, if you like to see a particular business partner, you can do this, get business partner and pass the key business partner ID. Now, if you like to do a navigation to sales orders from a particular, for this business partner, you have to do something like this. Your business partner, the ID / sales order. And then from the sales order, if you would like to see the lines of the sales order, you would do similar way / sales order, the ID and / sales order items. And then you could go to a particular line of a sales order, and then you could see the product. So this is a basic process of navigating through an OData service. Now, when you do navigation, just to explain to you what is the entity model which was used. So you have the business partner, you have the sales orders, and there is sales order items, and then the product. Business partner has a one-to-many relationship with the sales order, and similarly, sales order has its sales order lines, and sales order lines has product has the sales order line item. How does the EDM entity data model or EDM model look like? You have an entity type, which is a basic block which specifies a business object or an entity. For example, here you have the sales order item and the product. And each entity type is made up of one or more properties. One of the properties in this properties for the entity type would be the key of the property. So you could have more than one property here, but you should at least have one property, which is the key. And you would define an association between two entities. So you have to define an association using the key of one entity with the other entity. And using this association, you would do navigation. So if you want to navigate from product to sales order lines, you could do using the association. You could also have a navigation the other way around. So what are the products which use SAP NetWeaver Gateway from SAP? One of the biggest use is Duet Enterprise. Duet Enterprise uses Gateway to do integration to SAP backend, and of course Duet Enterprise is used to integrate Microsoft SharePoint. You have all the productivity apps which have been published by SAP. They are using SAP NetWeaver Gateway for their connectivity to business suite systems. Also, you have the HTML5 pages for SRM and HCM, which use which use NetWeaver Gateway for their connectivity. What is not put here is SAP Fiori, which also uses Gateway to do their connections to the backend or Fiori consumes OData services and render it on UI5 applications. This is just an example of the SAP SRM user experience. You find that there are web apps using on HTML5 which use Gateway. Similarly, you have mobile apps which uses Gateway and SAP for shopping cart approvals. The other solutions which use Gateway is Solution Manager. Solution Manager uses Gateway for their mobile apps, and these are already available with the SP6 of Solution Managers. An external solution which is available from NetWeaver on NetWeaver Gateway is Citizen Connect, in which this is a mobile app using which you could report issues. And when you click on the report issues, it will give you a list of issues which you could report. So if you choose debris, the mobile knows your location, and based on your location and the picture which you capture, a CRM complaint is raised in the backend, and you get a ticket number or to inform you what is it, and you could use this ticket to trace the status of your complaint. OData is also used externally, like for example this public service page from Vancouver City, which actually shows all the parking lots and what is the availability of these parking in these parking lots. This is published on, you could see this service on the odata.org website, and it's a publicly available site, and people could build solutions on top of this. Another example from Microsoft for OData is the Power Pivot for Excel. In Power Pivot, you could use OData feed as a data source, and once you are connected, you could choose the fields which you want and then create an Excel out of it, and once subsequently draw tables, charts out of this Excel, which is generated by just a couple of clicks. So this is what is available. These are some of the examples of where people have used OData and how it is done. So now let me go into and let me give you an introduction to or a deep dive on what is OData, structure of OData, and give you some examples of OData. Before I get into what is OData from the SAP perspective, I want to say why we need OData. So as you know, SAP is famous for business application development frameworks for people to build applications, data security, enterprise quality of the solutions which are there. Now, what is the aim of SAP is to have billion consumers by end of 2015. When we talk of these consumers, the consumers should have consumer level experience. They should have solutions which are solving their tasks, a task-centric solution. It should be able to, these solutions should be working in mobile, should be working with on web applications. People should be in a position to use this use these applications in their environment with the required enterprise quality and data security. One example of a solution which is consumer level experience is the Amazon iPhone app, using which you could purchase a book in 30 seconds. You just have to enter the book ID or a product ID and say buy. Doesn't give you things around it like reviews, reading reviews, but a lot of people use this. Now, how do you get these kind of solutions? Now, SAP knows that there are a lot of other developers, a lot of other source people who are building these kind of solutions. How do you connect to them and make things easy for them? So, to tap into that, we need some solution which is understood by people outside of SAP, which supports all kind of applications, easy to consume. It's mobile. It could work on mobile solutions. It can work with people it can be easily used by people with limited ABAP and SAP knowledge. So what is required is open standards, and this is where OData comes in, and this is the reason for SAP to go towards OData. The trends which are there in market is data moving out of silos to open data. As you saw, public solutions or public organizations are also opening up their networks to people to extract data and have a look at it. From isolated servers to services which are happening in big corporations, web documents to web APIs, like for example, You have those. You have APIs to some Facebook and Twitter to extract data from there and use it for different applications. And finally, you have solutions. We have some moving from isolated service to linked data and linked services. So you could move from one page to another page, something like that, as it happens in the World Wide Web. So with this trends and with this aim of SAP, we came up with OData. We moved towards came up with Gateway, which would allow OData generation of services and consumption. So looking from architecture perspective, comparing it with the World Wide Web, how does a client connect to a server in a World Wide Web is using the web infrastructure and a connector on the client side and the server side, which helps any client to connect to any server. So what Gateway, what OData, what true OData service, what we are trying to do is we have Gateway, which exposes OData and acts as a connector to business suite and the BW systems of SAP. And if you have a front-end UI, you could have an SDK for OData, which could be used to consume this OData service. And there are many SDKs available from SAP as well as from outside of SAP. Okay. So we have OData being open standard, and it is following and resources are addressable via a uniform URI. So that's a feature of OData. So let's see how an OData structure looks like. So OData is every resource is identified by a unique URI, and these URI are the same structure, the same look, irrespective from which data source this OData is generated. You do uniform operations or HTTP operations, and they have the same meaning, the HTTP operation, for all the systems. So whether when you do a get, put, post, it has the same meaning irrespective of what OData service you're working on. And OData, of course, supports both AtomPub and JSON formats. And OData is a query language. So what we say is that or what OData says is it's an ODBC for the web. And using OData, you could do CRUD operations, the create, update, delete, and retrieve operations on the backend systems. It is based on entities and relationship models, and it follows the hypermedia design pattern. So let's look at the structure of OData. So if you take an example of this entity relationship, so you have a product which can and categories and suppliers. A category can have multiple products. Supplier can supply multiple products. So this is the entity diagram, which we would see. And if you see this, this is a publicly available OData service from odata.org. So let me just go to that service. So if you see, I have this service and I have these entities, product, category, and supplier. So there's one more called advertisement. I have this, and this is the service document for the OData service. If I put add the string $metadata to this URI, I could see the metadata for this service. So you would see a lot of things inside this. I will explain this in a later slide. What are these? So let's go back to the slide. So in JSON, this would the entity set would look like this. So OData feed, the service document would look like this, as I shown on the screen, and you could add this $metadata to the root URI to see the metadata of the service. So just to show you what are the properties of these entities. These are the fields for each of these entities, and as I said before, there are relations between product categories and supplier. So one of the most important piece in a OData service, OData metadata is entity container. Entity container has all your entity sets and their associations. So you have the entity sets. So we have an entity set called product, which is of the type entity product, and similarly you have category, which is of the categories, which is of the type category. The convention or the for OData is that the entity set name should denote multiples of the entity type. So if you have an entity type called product, entity set name could be product, or it could be product set, or it could be product detail, or it could be product collection also. So this is the convention which is followed. So this is what is there. The entity container has entity sets and the association names. So let's see how the model looks like. As I said, you have the entity container which has all the entity sets. Okay. Now these the service document will denote all the entity sets which are available in that particular entity container. What is the entity set made up of? So this I just showed you entity container, and you have the entity sets. And this is the service document from when you look at in a JSON format. Okay. An entity set contains multiple instances of the entity. Okay. So you could say that an entity set is a table, and one line of the table is an entity. So an instance of the every instance is an entity. Even the entity set is a collection of instances of an entity. And entity is of the structure entity type. So if you take the entity set as a table, entity as the row in the table, entity type would be the structure of the table. So that's the relation between entity type, entity, and entity set. One of the entity type would have one or more properties, and one of the properties would be the key, or one or many, at least one property should be the key. So for that entity type, you will have one or many properties, and at least one of the properties should be the entity key. So you would use association to relate to entity types, and you would use the association to do navigation between the two entities, and the navigation is dependent on the key of the entity. So you can navigate from one entity to another entity using the key of the primary entity and to navigate to the dependent entity. Now the property. So just to show you in this XML, you have this entity set, products, and you have the entity type as a product. And if you look at product, you have these properties, ID and name and description and some more. And ID is the key of this entity type product. Now, a property has a particular type, basically the data type of the property. It could be a simple type, and this is the list of simple types which OData has. Say, take an example of idiom date time offset. When you take idiom date time offset, it stores the date and time with the UTC offset stored with it. Compare that with date time, it only has the date time, no offset is maintained. A type could also be a complex type, but then what is a complex type? A complex type is internally a collection of a set of simple types. So let's go back to this entity, so you would find that there is an entity ID for product, and then this is the data type of the of this entity. These are simple data types. So you have string, you have date time, you have decimal, and some more. If you look at the entity supplier, you would find that there is a property called address, which is of the type OData demo.address. And where is OData demo.address? Defined as this is a complex type, and this address complex type has multiple simple type entities, simple type properties. What is the use of this is that if you have, say, you want to have a property called local address and a property called shipping address and a property called billing address for a supplier, but the internal structure of the address is same, you could group this in a complex type and reuse this same property multiple times. So that's the use. This does not create a nested structure. So coming back to the presentation, so I showed you this, the entity types, what are the different entity types, how does it look, what are the properties, and I also showed you a complex type address and what are the complex types. Please note that the complex type cannot have a property which is a key. So you cannot directly address a complex type. So there is no key for the complex type. Now, what are the different operations on OData? I'm going to just show you some of the operations. There are a lot of operations which are listed, which are available. I would just show you a couple of operations which are there which OData has. So one of the operations is $top. So going back here, let's see the service document. So let's take products, and if I say products, it should now show me all products which are available in the backend system. So it lists me many products, but if I want to see only the top 3 products, so I could say $top equal to 3. So this would give me 3 records from the top 3 records from the database. So another command which you can be used for, which is there in OData, is if you want to read a particular product. Say for example, I want to read the product with ID 0. I could do that by passing the ID as a parameter to the collection, and if I say this, it shows me that the product with ID 0. So this could be done with other products, other IDs also. So this is how it works. What I'm doing is I am doing a read operation, though I'm firing a get. If I pass the key internally, it is doing a read and it will return me single record. Okay. If I don't pass this, and instead of this, if I do a filter. So say if I say $filter equal to ID EQ1. If I do this, this is not. This is actually firing a query, and you could get multiple records. You could get more than one record. So this is what is the difference. How to read and a query, but both cases it's a get. Now, if I want to do a navigation to another entity from a particular entity, I could do this by from this. So for example, I do a read. So I say 0, say 1, and so it's given me the 1 record. And then if you see here, I would have a link to how to read the categories. So this is the href, which is there. which is provided by the URI, by the backend, and I can just add that to my base URL and then do that. So I can see all the category details about this product. I can then also do for this category if I want to find all products. So this is this relationship, this navigation, and I just add that. So you would find that for category 1, it has listed me all products for this category. So this is how we could navigate between two entities. And if you see the backend server, the server itself is providing you the URI, how to move between resources. So that's a feature of OData. Same way you could navigate to supplier because there was an entity relationship maintained, and you could navigate to supplier and you could see supply details for a supplier. So now what are the different CRUD operations? What are the different HTTP verbs which are used? So the HTTP verbs used are for create, expose, for retrieve is get. When I say get, it could be retrieve a single record, which is a read, or retrieve a zero or more records, that's a query. Put, HTTP verb put is used for update, and delete is used for delete. Okay. Now, where does these operations work? The query, when you do a query on an entity, or when you do a get on an entity, you would do the get on the entity set, and what you get in return is a feed of the entity. You do a post also on an entity set, and once you do the post, what you get back is an entity, the newly created entity. You would do a read on the entity. So single entity is read. You do a put on the entity, and when you do a put, you don't get any return. There is no, the new value is not read back because you anyway have it. Similarly, you have a patch. It's the same. It's basically doing a partial update of an entity. And delete will also work on an entity, and delete does not return any value. Apart from this, there is something called $batch. $batch is normally used if you want to implement a process where you want to do all or none kind of scenario, where you want to club multiple requests into a single call and push it to the backend. And once this is executed, you will get multiple responses back with all the updates, all the creates. Now, apart from the CRUD operation, you could do some other service operations, which is what we call as a function import. A function import, I would give you an example of a function import, is required if you want to do something which is more than, say, an update. Say, for example, when you want to cancel a sales order, you could have a scenario where you are canceling a sales order, but the only thing which happens is that there's a field called cancelled, and that is updated. Now, that could be done by a put. You could update the sales order with this field as X or this field as true. However, in real life, especially in SAP, cancellation of sales order is not just putting the cancel flag ticked. You would have reversal of deliveries, you could have other checks done, maybe invoices to be verified, and a lot of other things. If this is to be done, you might have to call a different process, a different BAPI, a different task should be done. So these could be defined as function imports. And using function imports, you could do such processes. You could also have a scenario where a function import is only doing a complex query, a complex process, maybe doing some calculations and returning some values. Say, for example, if you want to find all employees who were taken vacation during 2012, you may not be having a simple query on an entity which will give you this. You might have to do multiple processes. So that's what is a function import. Now the function import is also defined in the entity container. So let's see, if you see the metadata, to come down to the entity container, you have this function import. You define the name of the function import. What is the name of the function import? What is the return type for this entity? So what does it return? What is the entity set which it works on? So that is defined. And what is the HTTP method which is used? So why is this important? Is that as per OData rule, if the function import is not doing any backend resource modification, then you would use the HTTP method get. However, if there is any change to the backend resources, the HTTP method post would be used. So that's the reason we define what is the HTTP method which is to be used, and this is for the front-end app developer to know what method should he fire this call, method he should use to call this function import. Like when my example of if I'm doing a sales order cancel, it would be HTTP method post because there are fields which are modified in the backend. Whereas if you want to only do you want to find out how many employees have taken vacation during 2012, you need an HTTP method to get. For the function import, you also specify what are the parameters which are passed and what is of course the data type of the parameter. You could have multiple parameters which could be passed to a function import. So, and this is how it will be called. You can say the base URL / get product by rating question mark the parameter equal to value. This is how you execute a function import. This function import get product by rating returns you all products with that particular rating. In SAP, when we building OData service, the convention is to not use this HTTP method in the function import name. We would, if we would prefer the function import to be without this HTTP verb get or post, and the HTTP verb is defined only in the metadata. So that's function imports. So let's come to when we say that OData is a query language. So let's see what are the different ways to do different queries in OData. So these are different query options, most important. For filtering, we use $filter. For projection, we use $select. Sorting, there is $order by. Paging, you have a combination of $top and $skip. And inlining, $expand. You can find a complete set of query string options which are there provided by OData in this link in the odata.org developers page where you have the URI convention specified, and there you can find the complete list of this, what are all available and what is all supported. So now let's take each of these. So filter is something very straightforward. If you want to put a filter on, say, price less than 20, so if I go to my product, so if I go to product, I could do something like this, question mark dollar filter equal to price EQ or less than, let's take that less than 20. If I execute it, it shows me all products which have price less than 20. So I could do this, I could do combination of this like price less than 20 and some other field having some other value. And we could do that. I could put filters on multiple fields, combination of fields. So that's filter. Another option, OData query is $select. The $select basically reduces the number of fields which are used basically to reduce the number of fields which are shown. It's something like when you say select field A, field B from a table. So it only returns those two fields. The advantage of this is if you have a OData service, it gives you say 20 fields, and you have a mobile application, you have an iPhone application and iPad application. You could use the same service, and on the iPhone you could show say 5 fields by using the select, whereas in the iPad you could show all the 20 fields. So this is the use of this, and based on that you could use the same service and show different sets of fields in this. So let's see how it works. I have this service, so I can say $select equal to ID. So now you see that it just shows me the ID, only the ID. And I could add more fields. So I just want to see the fields. So maybe I could put $select equal to price, comma, and you have rating. So I see 2 fields, so price and rating is shown to me. So that's the advantage of $select, and you could do any kind of projections with $select. In Gateway, this is taken care by the framework, so you don't have to write code for it. Of course, if your backend is also designed in that way that it returns only those fields, it will be very efficient. Order by is sorting. You can order entities by a particular field, and if you have the key value, if you have the key value ascending, it will be sorted in ascending order. Otherwise, it's in descending order. Another option is $top and $skip used for paging. I showed you $top. $top returns the top 5 or top 10 records. $skip is used if you want to skip a few records and then see the next record. So if you are creating an application, when you run the application, you would see the first 5 records. If you can render only 5 records on the app, on the device. So you say $top equal to 5, it will show you the first 5. But when you do the next page, you could say skip 5 and top 5. So it will skip the first 5 and give you the next 5 records. That's the use of $top and $skip. Normally, it always works in combination, skip and top. $expand is a command which allows you to see the particular entity and the navigation and the related entity or associated entity using the navigation. So, for example, if I have a requirement that I want to see all my categories, so I want to see categories 1, and I also simultaneously want to see all products which are below this category 1. So what I could do is I can say category 1. I have an option saying /product. If I say this is 2 calls to the system. But instead of this, I could do something like this: say question mark $expand equal to the entity name. So what it has done is it's shown me the category and also shown me all products for this category. What you should this is in Gateway. There's a default implementation. The default implementation, what it does is it uses the navigation and then retrieves the data. So if there are two RFCs connected, it will be two calls. However, you could have situations where you have sales order BAPI, which returns you both sales order header and lines. So you could override the default implementation by your own implementation, where you could do this in a single call. So this is a way to reduce the number of calls which are happening to the backend and optimizing the flow of data. So that's the use of $expand. You can find a lot of examples of OData in or features of OData in the site odata.org. You could also look at OData by example from Microsoft, which has a lot of information. Of course, more focus is on Atom format than on JSON format. Now that I have shown OData, let me get into Service Builder. What is the how Service Builder works and what are the different features of Service Builder. So, just a minute. Yeah. So what we would cover here is the data model. How do you create a data model from using the Service Builder? How do you do the service implementation? Then subsequently, how do you do registration of the service on a gateway hub or a backend system? So before I get into the system, what is the Service Builder? Service Builder is a tool basically which gives you all runtime, using which you can build all the runtime artifacts, the model provider classes, the data provider classes. It also allows you to build the OData artifacts, the entity sets, the entity types, properties. You can do also import an EDMX, that is an entity data model XML model, which you have created using tools like Visual Studio, which could import that. And Service Builder works as a project. So you build a project and you build features for that project. Service Builder would be a one-stop transaction to do all your OData services or all the gateway services. So how is the flow for a Service Builder? You do a service definition, then you do a data model definition, you then do a service implementation, and then registration of the service on the gateway hub. Another flow would be you have the service definition, and then you could generate the service, and you do service generation, and then you do the registration. So service model definition is basically what we call as a model provider class or MPC class, and the service implementation is the data provider class, which is a DPC class. Now, when you create a model provider class, you could have a declarative model. Basically, you create the model from scratch. You could import the model as an EDMX file, or you could import a DDIC structure from an SP DDIC structure, or you could import a BOR or RFC interface. Now, both the BOR, RFC, DDIC imports and the declarative model can be done repeatedly. This is how you would define a MPC class. When it comes to the DPC class, you could have a code-based implementation. So basically, you can build your own code completely, or you could also do an extension of the code which is generated. So if a code is generated by the generators, you could do an extension of the extension classes, which we could see how the extension class gets generated. The next option is that you use an RFC or a BOR operation to do the mapping to create and use the generator to generate the DPC class. When it comes to service generation, what are the options is that you could redefine a existing gateway service, which is there. So you could create mashups of gateway services, or you could have a redefinition of a data service which is generated using the GenAI layer or the SPI layer or the SAP BW easy query MDX services. So if you have, for example, if you have an easy query or an MDX service, you could convert that using the OData generator, using the generator provided by gateway to an OData service, and then consume this as an OData service on any user device. One of the biggest advantage of this is that if you have, say for example, if you have an analytics service like MDX query, you would normally find that it's got all properties as technical names. You could convert this to an OData service, and in OData service you can beautify this service and use that and can build apps on top of this OData service. Okay, so as I showed you this before, this is just an example of the data model which is used. So let's see the flow. So what we will do today in this exercise is to use the TDIC, use the RFC BOR interface and to create the NPC and the DPC class, and I will show this particular flow. So let's go to the ABAP system. So the transaction to be used for Service Builder is SEGW. So when you open SEGW, you would get a screen like this, which will list if you have done services, if you have created services before, you would see all the services which you have created before. So what you do first is to create a project. You would specify the name of the project. So let's call it, call this, I will call this say 20. Call this, and then I have to give a description to this. So this is demo DP service. And this project can be included in has to be included in a package. So let's include, in this case, for this demo, I'll include into a local package. I could define this as a local object. You could have your own packages and define it there. So once I have created this project, what I get is I get the data model. I then have the service implementation. I have to then do the runtime artifacts and then finally do a service maintenance or service registration. So what is there in the data model is I have to create the entity type, I have to create the entity set, and then I have to create associations between entity sets. So let's do, so if I right click on the data model and open the context menu, I have an option to create the entity types and sets and association and all other things manually. So once if I open this, it would give me a UI where I could create my entity and properties manually. The other option is to do an import. I could import a data model from a file, which I will show you later, after an hour or so. I could also import a DDIC structure. I could import an RFC BOR interface. So if I import a DDIC structure, it would give me a UI like this, where I could put the ABAP structure name and then subsequently it will load the structure. You could choose fields, you could ignore fields and all that stuff. I'm not using that. I would use an RFC BOR interface. So let's take an RFC BOR interface. So I have to give a name to the entity. So I call the entity as business partner. Now since it's an RFC or BOR object, it could be from a remote system. So I could specify what is my remote system and the RFC destination. And if I specify that, it would pick the RFC BOR interface from that particular system. And for this example, for this demo, for this session, I would use a local object. I would choose the bar object, and then let me search a bar object with the name EPM, starting with EPM, and say F4. So I see all these EPM solutions. EPM, for people who are not heard of it, is a replacement for SLite. It is available as part of NetWeaver, and it's got a business process of sales process and the purchasing process built into it. So let's take the get list method of this BAPI, and I then say next. So when I say next, it shows me the interface of the BAPI, which I would have to which I want to convert to an OData service. So let's choose some fields here. Some of the fields, SAP, postal code, street, building, country, and I say next to next. Now what I've done is it's shown me all the fields and what are the name of the fields. I have to choose one of the fields as a key, so I take the BPID as a key. Now this has happened because if the BPID was the key for that structure, it would have been automatically marked as a key, which of course we could change. You would also find labels for this entity, for this field. This label is coming from the DDIC text, which is maintained, and this is translated. So if you change when you call the service, and if you change the HTTP language, and if the backend has the translation maintained for this language, the labels would come in the right language. Of course, if the language is not maintained, the label remains in the default language. Once this is done, if I finish, what it's done is it's created an entity type for me called business partner, and it has put all the properties for this entity type. So all the properties which are there. Once I have this entity type, let me create the entity set. So I just call it PPT, and then I make it of the type business partner. So I do this, and once this is done, as soon as I've done this, what has happened is the service implementation would start showing me the CRUD operation for this particular entity set. So we have the create, delete, the read, and the query, that's get entity and get entity set, and of course update. So if I now do a generate, what should get created is my NTC, the model provider class, the data provider class, and their extension. So gateway, the service builder would generate these classes for you. And if the model is generated, the model is based on a RFC, you cannot change the BPC or the NTC class, but you can always redefine the extension class. So this is how extensions are possible to the generation. What the two other things which are generated, which are created, is the technical model name and the technical service name. The technical service name is what will be copied to the external name, and the external name is what is visible on the URI, and this is what is registered on the gateway hub. So once the tables are once the classes are created, you could of course change the classes, have a right name. The convention we follow is all the NPC classes, all the model classes have NPC, and for data provider classes we have the DPC to identify the class. Again, this has to be locked, included in the package. So I take a local object, and now what it's done is it has generated these classes for me. So let me see if I go to the workbench. It opens the MPC class and we would see that NPC class has inherited a superclass which is shipped with gateway, and you would find that there is this define method which is redefined. The define method basically calls another method, and in this method you would find all the code for the model, which is generated by the generator. And you find that there is an entity called business partner, and then there are multiple sets of properties for the same business partner. And finally, you also specify the length of each of the fields, what is the data type, and you will find this structure. So once this is how the model looks like, and once the model is created, now I could go and do a registration of the service. So I go to service maintenance, and if I double click, this service maintenance will show me all systems which are connected to this gateway system and where I could register my service. So you find that registration status is gray. That shows that we have not registered the service. So I click this register button. It shows you a warning saying that it could be taking you to another system. Once I've done that, I could add to specify the system alias. Once I specify the system alias, I'll get the screen where I have to specify the package where this will be included, and I specify the package and I accept. So now the service is registered, and I can go to maintain. If you click the maintain button, and I can open a browser to look at the service. So it didn't ask me for an authentication, basic authentication, because I have another session opened where I've opened the same, connected to the same system. So you find that I have this service document with one entity, one collection called SAP DP details. I could look at the metadata for this, and you will see that it's got this entity type called business partner with these properties, the container which has this entity set called DP details. Now let's try executing this. Because I not put dollar format. So I have this, and let's try to do a query on BP details. So if I do a query on BP details, what I get is an error saying that BP details get entity set is not implemented. So this is because if I come back, though my DPC class is generated, there is nothing inside the DPC class apart from the exceptions which are there. So if I get to go to this entity set, you find this is the exception which was raised since I have not done any mapping. So let's do the mapping now. So to do the mapping, I have to go to service implementation, to go to the correct operation. So I right click here and do a mapping to data source. Again, I can use a PAPI here. So as before, I take a bar object, look for this EPM service, and I have this get list. Please note that I could have the BAPI interface of one BAPI interface used for the model and a different BAPI used for the service implementation. There is no need to have the same structure as long as the fields are available. So I do this get list. What it does is it opens out a screen. So there is a screen which opens, in which on your left, on the left side of the screen, what you find is the model, the fields from the model, and on the right side you will find the different parameters or different interface parameters of the BAPI. Now, you could you could click the propose mapping button available on the top, and it would do the mapping, it will propose the mapping. So I click this, it has done the mapping proposal for this structure for this model. Now the next step of which I will have to do is that once I've done this mapping, I will also have to pass filters to the BAPI to retrieve the right kind of records or right records. Now to pass the filters, I will have to add a new field. I have to choose one of the fields from the model. So let me choose the BPID. I choose the BPID, and I have to map this to a field in the BAPI interface which could take the filter. So you know this is a range table, and the cell param BPID is a range table, and I could do a mapping to this range table as an of this BPID coming from the URI. Once I do this mapping, because it's a range table, it also gives me this option to set values for this. What is if I want to give some constant values, but good practice is not to change this, because then your queries are more flexible. So you find that BPID is there as an input or is returned back to the model, and also BPID is sent to the BAPI as an output. So when you have an output, you are basically telling that this is how the filters are passed. Now I would also like to put a filter on company code, company name. So let's take company name, and I use this. So this way you could have multiple fields on which you could put filters. Now it doesn't have to be a range table. You could pass filters to an individual field or a set of fields, and then manipulate this. Now, if you know BAPIs, all BAPIs would have a field called BAPI max row. This field is actually returning. If you set a value to this field, those many records will be returned after the BAPI call. So we use this. We could use this as the $top feature. So how do you tell the generator that this is the $top field? There is an option on top of on the right side which says set or unset max hits. So which is you could click this, and the field will be then your the $top field. What the generator, if you notice, there is no $skip. So what the generator does is it adds the top and skip values, and then gets that many records and removes the skipped records. If you are building your own BAPIs or RFCs, you could build a feature to pass both skip and top and manage and get the right records. So once this is done, I can then again generate. And once I generate this, and if you go back to my DPC class, you would find that the get entity set method has been implemented, and you find this code which is generated. You would also notice that we have comments for each of these code, and is well documented inside this, that what each piece is doing. So somewhere this is where you have the filters being passed, and subsequent down you will have the $top. So you will see this max row being assigned, and then the BAPI is executed. BAPI name is BAPI is called by this command for executing the BAPI. Now let's try to run the service. So let me go back to my browser, and I just execute the service. You find that it's shown me all entities, which other for business partners, which other. Now I could put filters, like in case a filter equal to company name EQ SAP. So the spelling of company is wrong. So it shows me records which has the company name as SAP. I could also do things like greater than SAP. So it shows me all records where the company name is greater than SAP. So I can do a combination of that. Similarly, I can put filter on say business partner ID. I could also do things like this: select equal to say city, comma street, and filter. And let's say company name equal to SAP. So I think I'm making a mistake somewhere. So but let's see, without the filter, this work. Yeah. So I can see street and city, and of course you could have a combination of filter and select. Also. Now I could do an implementation of a read. So I would do read. So one click. So I just do a mapping. The same process. I take the BAPI, which is a BAPI which I want to do. I will choose the get details BAPI. And again, it shows me the same thing, similar kind of screen. I do a mapping. And if you know, in a read or a get detail BAPI, the business partner ID is a mandatory field, and which is and it has to be passed. And it's also good for us because that's how we do a read. So I do this, and I generate. Once I've done the generate, if I go back to my browser, so let's take out the select and look at the details. So now if I want to do a read, I can take this particular in the href or which is available. Just put this, and I would have to add a 0 in front of this and then read it. So it has read that one particular record with the company, with the business partner ID starting with 1 followed by 0. Why I put this 0 when in the URI is because in SP6 of Gateway what we are using, the output alpha conversion, field conversion is implemented, whereas the input field conversion is not yet implemented. It will be done in SP7, but what you could do is that in the DPC class, not the DPC class, the NPC class, you could, the data provider class, what you will have to do is in the define, in this define method, this is where this has happened, the alpha conversion. You could in the extension class, you can make this alpha conversion, make this conversion exit as false. That way you would suppress the conversion exit and do that. So basically you would have to do in the extension class, you would have to do is call the define method of the superclass and then do this one line to suppress the conversion. In SP7, this is available for both input and output. So that's a service which I have done. Now let's see if I create another. Let me create another entity. So I just do the same process, but this time I use sales order. Do a sales order, and again in EPM, I take the sales order model, and then I have this. Let's take the sales order header data. I take this field. So some of these fields, note, buyer ID, buyer name, some of fields. So I could take this field, and I can say next, and then finish. So now I have my sales order entity type created similarly, and then now I will go and create the entity set for sales order. So let's call it SO detail or SO header detail, and then assign it to a sales order entity type. And as soon as I do this, you would find that I also have the service operations for the sales order. So let's implement a query for sales order. Again, same process, PM, sales order, get sales order. Take this to a mapping of it, and then I put some filters for sales order ID and assign it to sales order ID. And I can also say max row, specify a max row. So now I have this mapping done for sales order ID, and then I can do a generate. Once I do a generate, if I go back to my service, and if I look at my service document, you find that I've got business partner and I've got sales order. Two entities which has come, and I can do navigate. I can do a query on the sales order header, like how I did that for business partner. Now let's do a navigation between sales order and business partner. So what I do is I create an association, call it BP to SO. When you do a live development, I would recommend that these names are meaningful, because using these names are visible to the metadata, and people using the metadata should understand this. So I have to specify what is the principal entity. So here my principal entity is business partner, and the dependent entity is sales order. And I also need to specify the cardinality. So I specify that one business partner could have 0 to n sales orders. So when this is done, I also have to specify the relational referential constraint between these two entities. So as you know, as I said, for the principal entity, it's always the key, and the dependent entity, I could assign it to any field which is there. So I've done this. Once I've done this, I could go to business partner, and I could create a navigation tool here. So again, I say BP to SO, and I assign it to this. Again, as I said before, these names, what you're using, should be meaningful. And of course, you can also give labels to these names, and these labels could be maintained as text elements, and these could get translated. So this once is done, you have a generate. Once the generate is done, if I go back to my service, you would find that if I do look at business partner, the business partner, and you find that I have this navigation available for me, and using this navigation I could navigate between sales orders between business partner and sales order. There is an error which happened, but I can then show you how navigation works by maybe having another entity called for sales order lines, which would work. So let's take this and take sales order lines here. So take some other fields here, and product ID and note and currency and something like that. Maybe delivery date. And I think to key and finish it. I also then have to create an entity set for this. Call it SO line detail of the type SO line, and I can press enter, and then I can go and create an association here between SO header to line, and my principal entity is sales order, and depending on lines I have to specify one sales order would have 1 to n sales order lines, and then I can also define a reference to constant, which is sales order ID, and here again it will be sales order ID. Done this. Once I've done this, I can have a navigation defined. So I say this into header to line. After doing this, generate and post generation. Just do a refresh. You will see the lines. I can go to the details. I can see the sales order headers by the time it comes up. I just need to also do one more thing is I need to create a get query for the sales order lines. So let's do that. And something like this. And I do a map proposal, and I can then put a filter on pass the sales order ID as a filter to this serial sales order. And I can now generate. So you've seen the sales order has come, fetch the sales orders, and you will find that there is this navigation which is specified to go to help me to do a navigation to the sales order lines. And using this navigation, I can navigate to sales orders. So let me just refresh it. So for sales orders to come up, because I changed the service. And there are lots of sales orders, so it might take little time to load it. And as you notice, I have not put any filters or any kind of filters for sales orders. So let me try. Yeah, so it's got it. So let's do a read for a particular sales order. Again, and because of the alpha conversion, I'm not done the read. For the sales order header. Give it a few seconds for it to load it back. So this error is basically because we don't have mapping for the read. No mapping done for the read, and that's the reason why this error occurred. And this error is clearly specifies which method is failing. So once this is come back, so let's see if I can do a navigation to sales order lines. So it gives me all the lines for that particular sales order. So that's the service builder, what is there in it, and the different features of service builder, and which other you would notice that there are some checkboxes which are there. Using these, you could specify whether, say for example, this checkbox, which you could specify whether this particular entity type has a media link, and if you have a media link, you could do some methods could be implemented, and using those methods, you could read, update, or create, read, update, create, and delete pictures or documents which are there on any media form. Similarly, for a property, you would find that there are, for an entity set, you would find that there are properties like whether it is creatable, updatable, subscribable, right? Some more fields. These are very well documented in the help portal of SAP. You could read it and get more info on what are these checkboxes and how to use these, and how will it help in your development. Coming back to the slide, so I just showed you this. Now, after you've done the whole steps in the service builder, what you get is this. You will have the MPC, the model provider class, and the extension. You will have the data provider class, the extension. You would have the technical service name, which wraps the model provider class, and the technical model name, which wraps the model provider class. Combination of these sets, the model provider, data provider, the technical service, and the technical model, is what we call as the gateway service, or in other terms, it's called the gateway content. And the technical service name is what is copied to the external service name, and I showed you how these artifacts look like, how can you navigate through these artifacts. And once you have this, what you do is to register this service on the Gateway Hub. So the Gateway, once you have registered the service on the Gateway Hub, and again this is also done from the Service Builder's last task, which I done, you can then these services are available to the outside world, and also this service is visible in the Gateway Service Catalog. And anybody could browse through the catalog, and again this catalog is a OData service on its own. Before I end this session, I would just want to show you one more feature. I showed you the browser to look at the gateway service. There's something called as a gateway client, which comes with gateway. Now, the gateway client is a Rust something similar to a Rust client, using which you could do your operational processes to test the services. So, for example, if I want to do if you do an execute, you take the HTTP method get and do an execute. what it shows me is the service document, and if you want, I can look at the metadata. So if I do an execute, I can look at the metadata. I can also do other activities, other process steps, like I could do filters and queries here. What the other advantage of this is that I could look at error logs, which are there, if there are any for this service, and look at those error logs, and subsequently also do some more queries. So if I take example, I just put around entries to get an error. So let's try something like this, and I do this. I get an error, I can look at the error log. I have this error which has come, this is the error which is there. I can look at the application log, what are the different, what is there maintained in the application log. And it shows me what are the different classes, different things which has happened. I can also look at the call stack where the error has happened. I can also go to the back. If the error is coming from a backend, I could also do a backend monitor. So it would connect to the backend system and show me the application log from the backend system. And of course, I can also do a rerun of the service. So for example, if this was the error and I identified that this error is because of the code, I could go and fix the code and come back and rerun the service. And hopefully then the error should not happen. And I could do my other stuff, like I could look at the XML format, response data, the request data, and things around it. So also what could be done with the service build, with the gateway client is that on your left, what you see is the HTTP request, and the empty screen here is actually the body, HTTP body. You could fill the HTTP body to test the create, update process. And you could do a post or a put, depending on what is the options which you are there. And you could also save your test cases and then rerun the test cases as for regression tests. So there's a tool which gives you all features whatever client has, plus it gives you all the other features for making gateway service testing or validation easy. So that is the REST client. You also have, you can also look at, you can do exploration of the service directly from the activating and maintaining, without going into the REST client or without going into the gateway client. But then these are limited functionality. So you could say, for example, look at the service document. It shows me the service document. I can also look at the metadata. I can look at the entity set. So I can specify which entity set, and I can say, and it will show me that entity set. So basically, I can do a query or a query operation here. Whereas using the gateway client, I could do all query, read, create, update, the complete correct operations. So that's what is there in the service builder. So I've shown you this service builder, the registration of the service, and what is there. Please note the system. The service builder is available in a system where you have the IWBT component installed. Now the service builder could be in your backend business suite system. It could be in your gateway hub system also, if you have IWBT implemented in both places. The gateway hub, the registration of the service would happen where you have the IWFND component implemented, so that would be the hub. system where you would do the registration of the service. And you could have multiple backends registered to the same gateway hub. So that is therefore gateway service builder. So we could take a break here. Welcome back. What we would see is what's called as the OData modeler for Eclipse. What I'm showing here is basically from the service builder perspective, how I can create an OData model using in Eclipse and then subsequently import it into service builder and then do your service implementation there. Now the OData modeler for Eclipse is a plugin from or a product from SAP from Gateway, which is available when you see the consumption part of this enablement session. You would see more about where you can get it, how you can download it. So once you have this OData modeler implemented or installed in your Eclipse IDE, you could do something like this, that I could create a project, which is a plain project, call it product demo, and once inside the project I could say new other, and there I would have this option of an OData model. And this OData development comes in because the plugin is installed. So you have this OData model, and once I say this, I can call this model as product, and let's take a blank model. So I get this view where I can add entities. So I can call this entity as product. As soon as I call this product, you get an entity set called product set, and you also get a property with the property called product ID as a key. Of course, you could always change this name. You get this, and if you see, you have the facets for this, and I can define the max row as say 10 characters. I could also, if you look at if I go to this entity, I could add new properties. I could add complex types. I could have the enum properties, and then of course I can have navigation and association created. So as of now, I just create a few additional properties. So I call a property called name, and I specify this as 40 characters long. I add another property called description. Again, call it 225 characters, and the last property is price. And then because it's price, I change this the data type to idiom decimal, and then once it's decimal, I can specify the precision. So I specify that it is 15 precision and a scale of 4. So once I've done this, I have this entity which is defined and the properties which is there. I could then export this as a file, as a OData model, and I can give this take it from here, and I can save it on my desktop as product demo XML. So I can say finish and say save, and I've done the exporting. So what I've done is basically created an entity, modeled an entity here, given some properties, and then exported this as an XML file to my desktop. So the scenario could be that you have a front-end UI developer or a business consultant who does this entity modeling and creates multiple entities and defines the relationship between these entities. And then he could give this model, export this model as an XML to the the backend ABAP gateway service developer. And what the ABAP developer would do is he would have to create a project. So first he would say, call it as, say I call this as 20, and I call it product from XML, and I local objects and I save it. So once I've done this, I go to the data model, go to the context menu and import the data model from a file. So I have this model which is there on my desktop and I import it. And once I import it, you would find that it has created an entity type with these fields, and it has also created an entity set for me. And if you look at the entity set, it would have also done, it has checked these properties for me. You could change this, you could add more properties, you could change the properties depending on what you want to do. Once this is done, I could also do a registration, or I just must have to generate the services for me to have the runtime artifacts. And once the runtime artifacts is generated, I can then go and register the service. So again, the same steps. I registered the service, and what I also do now is let's do a service implementation. So let's do the get entity set, and I do a mapping. For the get entity set, again I use an EPM for products, and I have this get list method, and I do this. And I try to do a propose mapping. It may not work because of the fields which are there, but then I can always do a drag and drop. Once I've done this, I can generate my service, and if I now go to my maintain services and call the browser, you see that I have the service document here. You find that there are two other collections called subscription collection and notification collection. This is because I had the subscription checked. That's why it got created. But I have this product set which is there, and if I do this product set, you find that I can see all the products and their corresponding fields and their values. So you see names, the product ID, the price, and the description of the product. So what I wanted to demonstrate here is that this is a new tool from SAP, what we call as a gateway productivity accelerator. You would see it in the consumption side when we talk about the consumption, where you would see this, and then using this you could do an entity model and then subsequently export this file and import it into gateway, and the same model gets created, and then you just have to implement, do the service implementation. This is the productivity accelerators. Whether you see more in the later session. So I think now we could open the stage for Q&A. Martin, can you open it for Q&A?
Thank you. If you would like to ask a question at this time, please press the star or asterisk key followed by the number 1 on your telephone keypad. Please ensure the mute function on your telephone is switched off to allow your signal to reach our equipment. Once again, please press star 1 to ask a question. We'll pause for a moment to allow everyone the opportunity to signal. And we can take our first telephone question. Please go ahead. Your line is open.
Hi, I have a question regarding the service builder. When we import the BOR object, and when we are mapping the input fields for the BPID that we have mapped to map to the range selection range field that is already existing in the BOR. How does it really work? I mean, the sign-in options. I mean, the structure is totally different. The BPID in the model does not have sign-in option, but it does have sign-in option in the BOR. So, can you explain a little further on that?
Yeah. So what happens is that if you see let me open the data provider class where you have this mapping which is happening. So let's go to the get entity set, and if you see, look at the signature of your this method. What the framework does is the URI, the filter parameters which are there on the URL will be converted. It will try to convert that into a filter option. So it will convert that into a filter option, and it also has this filter string. It gives you both. And what it does down in the bottom is in the code. If you see the code, is that it does a loop on this. It checks if these are available. So you have this filters. It gets the filters and gets the filter options from the framework, and then subsequently does a loop here. So where is it gone? I think I'm looking at the wrong method. Not here. I'm actually looking at a wrong this thing. So let's see the BP. So this will be more, which will have more things. So let's go to this method and get entity set. So if you look at here, you find these filters, and then it has a loop. So it does a loop on this select the filter structure, and then it looks for the filter properties. So if it's BPID, then it does this mapping, something like this. So okay. You will have to do this, and what you would have got is a range table from the framework, and then the range table can be mapped to the corresponding fields in the parameter ID. Of course, if the generator would take care of this mapping. If you're doing on your own, you will have to do something like this. So first you will have to find, get the filters from the framework, and then check. You could check if there's no filters. You could have a message. Yeah.
So this Andre. So yeah. I've just posted a document which will probably be live tomorrow that shows it how it's done manually in the coding.
Okay. Okay. So that's also an answer. So manually how to do it, but how to do it with a generator, it's available here.
And is this feature only available from IWBP 6 onwards, or is this not compatible with the older IWBP component, older version of the IWBP components?
The older version is, which version are you talking? Is it SP3?
I think we are in.
Okay, I'll tell you the background. I'll tell you what has happened is in SP3 the generators were not using the IWBP way of doing it. IWBP was only for manual code creation. In SP5, Service Builder came up, and in Service Builder this is both generators and manual coding uses the same IWBP way of doing development. So that's the reason why in SP5 and above SP6 now, you would see that irrespective of which way you do the coding, it's always the same way. That's IWBP with these classes which will be used. So if you see in SP3, the generators don't use the IWBP way of coding. Okay. And our recommendation would be that you should use the service builder if you are in SP5 or above to do your development. That makes it much more flexible and easy to develop. Yep. Yeah.
As a reminder, to ask a question, please press *1 on your telephone keypad. We have no further signals for questions at this time.
Okay, so there is a question in the chat window which talks about, I think that was answered by Andre. The question was, what is the difference between web service and OData service? Andreas answered that question. Just to give you a brief, is that in a OData service, when you do a get, it always has the same meaning. And irrespective of what kind of service you're using, SAP, non-SAP, it's the same meaning. Whereas in a web service, predominantly a SOAP service, a get could also do an update of a field. And also another advantage is OData service, you could choose what you want, which part of the service you want to use. And the change in the service does not change your application, because unless you change the keys, other than that, the applications will run with the existing, if you don't want the new feature. Is there any other question on that?
There are no apologies. We've just received a signal for our next telephone question. Please go ahead. Your line is open.
I have a question. How about the date and time fields handled through gateway? I mean, do we have to mandatorily convert that into a string, or do we have a provision for upconverting this date field from the ECC backend to a gateway?
Volker, would you answer this?
I'm sorry.
Sorry, can you please repeat the question? Just Volker
Sure.
speaking.
I think we are seeing some problems with the date fields. With the date fields that were defined on the backend system, ECC system, those are not getting properly converted in. I mean, when we try to get the date fields into a gateway, we are having some sort of issues around getting the date field.
Yeah, I mean, most probably, yeah, then somebody would need to look into that individual case. But as a kind of rule of thumb, if you make sure that you have a proper type binding, ideally pointing to a data dictionary structure or even a data element like SY datum, then if you feed that field in with a date field, for instance, like the current system date, then the conversion should happen properly. So it's whenever we see problems, it's about the type binding and the resulting type. There were certain issues on the service builder side with previous releases where date fields were generated as packed fields. And in this case, even the service builder was not able to do the mapping. So if when you went for the service provisioning part, so the service implementation part, where you drag and drop the fields to map them, for instance, from an RFC interface to your model, then even the service builder was complaining and saying that the data types they were not fitting. So this is something you need to ensure that ideally you have a data dictionary binding. of your property, or even the entire entity has a structure, to make sure that the data dictionary type is used and not a local type, like a local packed format is being used. Then also date time fields should work properly.
Okay.
But if you are not able to solve that that problem, then feel free to create a support ticket, or drop us a mail that we can have a look. So that is also possible.
Sure. Send a mail to me, suresh.k@sap.com. I'll find an answer.
Sure.
Another known issue or recurring problem in regards to date field is that sometimes the nullable option or nullable flag is not set. That typically leads to problems when there is an empty date, which can of course occur on the ABAP side, that simply a date field is empty. But in the OData, on the OData side, you need to allow that this can contain a null value. And if you do not allow this, and you have an empty date, then you get a runtime error, because during runtime it is not able to render this, since it is null, but null is not allowed, and therefore it crashes. So that's another rule of thumb, that whenever there is a date field in your data model, or date time field actually, or UTC timestamp, you should always make sure that to allow null for that field, so that you flag the nullable option.
Okay. And one other question. Let's say I have three different filtering criteria, and all these three filtering criteria will be listed in the output as well. In that case, do I have to mandate to have all these three fields defined as key fields?
No need of, you don't have to have filtering. Like I had shown my example where business, I'm using company name as one of the filtering criteria. Some company name is not the key field.
Okay.
That is just part of the query option, So you specify the filter theoretically on all fields that you have declared as filterable, you can do a filtering. Of course, your data provider has to make sure that it takes care about it. So either you have modeled it via the service builder, so that you have, like Sadish has shown, has mapped the corresponding input or the corresponding property as an input into the as an input value for that RFC, or to a ranges table, which is even more optimal. That is this kind of to connect an incoming filter to the actual RFC call. That is something you have to ensure. So either you can do that via modeling, or if that is not possible because of the complexity of the RFC, you need to do that via coding.
Okay, got you. I have one more question. I'm actually generating models out of the gateway using the BDC browser transaction. When there are multiple filtering criteria, each time, sometimes, the model flip these input fields in a different sequence than, if we make a code change, and then if we regenerate that, there is a possible, we have seen that, the models have been flipping the order of sequence of the fields when the models are generated. Have you seen any kind of issues around model generation from Gateway?
Who wants to take it?
I did not really get the question.
You're saying that the properties get shuffled around, so the order is changing when you do a regeneration?
Right.
I have not seen that before, but actually it should not matter, because data protocol is obviously something that runs behind the scene under the hood. So the browser, for instance, results you typically do not show to the end user. So technically it should not matter which order these your properties have. But I haven't seen it, to be honest. I mean, the sequence typically remains the same.
Okay, I think I can explain a little better.
Because if you do an XML parsing, then you anyway have just a list of properties for each record, for each entity, and then it should not matter which sequence these properties are coming in.
Okay, the IWPNG/BDC_underscore browser, this particular transaction, in this transaction, we are actually right now using the transaction for generating the BDC models. And when there are multiple filtering criteria, for example, the BPID and in our example, we have seen BPID and company name. Those two are filtering criteria. And when we generate a model, another issue that I am seeing is it either picks up only one of these two fields as a filtering field in the model, within the model when SAP generates it.
The model as such. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I really am not sure if these are all, a little bit of shortcomings with the existing version that we have of the GUID server. I think we are on version 5, if I'm not wrong.
I mean, there were definitely improvements and stabilization activities taking place in SP6, and even SP7 will have, as also Satish mentioned, further improvements. I mean, if there is a specific problem, as mentioned, drop us a mail, create a ticket. But bottom line, the recommendation is, of course, to go for the latest SD, because other than in contrast to other SAP solutions, we are allowed to do development in SPs, and that's the reason why we are able to enrich the functionalities and the capabilities with SPs, because typically SPs are just providing fixes and corrections. So I would recommend that you try it out with SP6. Upgrading or patching the system to SP6 is typically not a big deal, and to give it a try then.
Okay. Okay, I think that's all I have.
Is there any other questions on the line?
We have no further signals for telephone questions.
Okay. So I think there is one question in the chat. I think we answered it. What is the purpose of the MPC and DPC class generated when the gateway service is created? So MPC is a model. MPC class contains the model, and the DPC class contains the implementation, the service implementation for the model. That's the purpose, and these are two classes which make up the gateway service. So if there are no questions, I think we could take a break here, 10 minutes, and then we will go on to the service, to the consumption and how to consume gateway services on an HTML5 or and an iOS system. Back to the partner enablement session. So now we go into consumption, and I hand over to my colleague Andre Fischer, who will take you through gateway productivity accelerators and things around it. Over to you, Andre.
Yeah, thanks Satish for a nice introduction. So my name is Andre Fischer. I'm working in the product management of SAP NetWeaver Gateway. They're in a group which is working on customer and product success, which means we are interested in getting customers up to speed and partners. And in addition, we are testing the product as like customers. so that after each sprint we get the latest drop of the different products and try them out. Okay, what I would like to talk about today is the Gateway Productivity Accelerator toolset. A short technical overview. You have already seen parts of that. So that was what Sadish was showing when he was modeling a model. So that is part of this overall toolset. Okay, so some, let's say, starting with some motivation about why we did the whole thing, and why Gateway Productivity Accelerator is the solution for those challenges. And then I would like to walk you through the main product features and provide an architectural overview of the same. So basically we have different challenges. So it depends on from which angle you look at it. So first of all, the business challenges. So you have a high training costs. So if people are supposed to work with SAP, so with complicated UIs, they need training, and maybe they are not doing that much. Maybe simple UIs would be sufficient. And the IT has to cope with the fact that because there are different integrations into SAP, they have to handle different technologies. So from a support point of view, this is a nightmare. And so the developers, in the end, they have to fight with complexity when building applications. In the end, that results in a high total cost of developmentship. So, and they have the maintenance costs are also high because the solutions are not that similar. So the Gateway Productivity Accelerator, they would like to help here. So we have already seen Gateway as a box in front of the SAP Business Suite, providing access via OData. And here, this OData can then be consumed by applications that are either on demand, so cloud-based stuff like Windows Azure or now the SAP HANA Cloud, or on device, so mobile devices or tablets, or even on-premise solutions like solutions that are based on Microsoft Office. So the goal is offering a tool set that tackles all these different implementation approaches, will allow to use SAP data in your familiar environment. So somebody who's supposed to work usually with Office will be able to consume the data with Office, while people that are on the road and maybe mostly using mobile devices, they will be able to consume SAP data with their mobile devices. However, this is not disrupting your existing SAP Business Suite version because SAP NetWeaver Gateway can put in front, and the add-ons that are necessary to run the service, if they run in the backend, they are downward compatible until 7.0. And last but not least, in the end, you get those nice services without SAP knowledge required, allowing you to develop applications based on the different platforms you see here on the right side, starting from PHP for web-based applications, or HTML5, especially with SAP UI5, or even Java-based, or iOS and Android. So the Productivity Accelerator, so has a solution for everything, right? Starting from the possibility to browse our data services, so you can connect to an SAP system, get a list of all the services that are there. It has means to graphically model an entity. So rather than doing this manually in the service builder, you can do this using those nice tools, and which are more visual, therefore easier to use. But even without an SAP system, in principle, development is possible because we are able to generate such proxies. For the business expert, so the one that is not that technical, we offer template-based development. So you see these templates that, for example, allow to generate an application just for workflow. Then it's something that the generated code contains security features that are available somehow out of the box. So the developer does not have to deal with things like how does a logon box look like, or how has my request to behave if a request for authentication pops up. So architecture-wise, everything lives in Eclipse. So we have different plugins that allow you to generate applications for different platforms. So starting from HTML5, there we support jQuery or SAP UI5. Going to Android apps, it's also possible to generate iOS apps, even here from Eclipse. That's something what Volker will show later on. Here, only the apps are generated. In the end, they would have to be handled by the Apple-based development environment. This is because Apple does not allow for the extension of their development environment. So for all those, we have a custom UI add-on that then, in the end, connects to SAP NetWeaver Gateway, and then, in the end, to the SAP Business Suite system. So now, going a little bit more into detail, here you see some screenshots. So first part of this Eclipse wizard is a wizard that allows you to create OData models. So you can start from scratch just by creating an empty model, or you can take a metadata URL of an existing OData service. So you could import the same into the Eclipse and then maintain it. You can even upload a metadata file that you first have downloaded. This is also an option, or you can browse the service catalog from the SAP NetWeaver Gateway system and take a model from there. If the model has been imported, or if you have created it, it looks like on the right-hand side. So first of all, you see a larger screen where you actually add properties, create navigation properties and associations. And on the left-hand side, it's possible to have a larger overview about the model, because if you have several entities, they might not fit onto this small window. So you have this 10,000 feet view and can have a look at the overall structure of your model. Here the modeler supports everything what you have also already seen, what Satish has shown, especially in the service builder. So here you can create entities and add properties, and even complex types and function imports and associations. So though here it's much easier if you do this manually, the other way around would be you start with existing models and tables and whatsoever from within the ABAP stack and import it there into the service builder. But here it would be more the, let's say, the front-end developer that might be able here to create a model and use then this model, let this import into the ABAP stack in order to generate the appropriate ABAP classes. So this is this is a point where actually the front-end developer and the ABAP developer meet. That's the OData model. The second part of the plugins are what we call the starter applications. So we have different toolkits for Android, HTML5, so SAP UFS and jQuery, iOS, Java, just pure Java and PHP. And for those, depending on the platform, we offer different templates, starting from a basic application, going over to a list detail view, so that you start with a list, for example, with a list of business partners, and then navigate to sales orders, and then have a look at the details of the sales order. Especially for workflow, so ABAP workflow, we also have a template, because we deliver one generic workflow service that allows you to retrieve workflow items from different backend systems. After you have done this, so followed that wizard, source code will be generated actually. That you can take it from there and add maybe additional coding or create more sophisticated UIs than those that are generated. Just one comment, what's not possible is to develop, so change the SAP coding, the generated coding for those apps, and then later on regenerate it while maybe the model has changed. So this is not possible. It's a one-time effort. You would have to decide at a certain point in time to model something. But it's a great advantage for people that are not accustomed to development that much, so they get an up and running application, what they can then change, and especially the cumbersome stuff like certain security features are generated already, and you don't have to take care about those. Availability of the tools is here on this side, on our tools hanaondemand.com site. There, especially the gateway productivity tools are in. It's described here what kind of prerequisite you would have to implement first. So, but this is something Volker will later walk you through in more detail. Yep. That was the presentation. Are there any questions so far before I start with the demo?
If you'd like to ask a question, please press star 1 on your telephone keypad. We have no signals for telephone questions at this point.
Okay. Okay, so what I will do now is I will start with an Eclipse that I've prepared where this add-on is in. So first it asks me for a workspace as usual. And then I will start to create a project to consume an OData service. So for this I choose File, New, and then Other. And in the next window, I expand the OData development folder, and there I find 3 entries. The first one is the OData model, and the service proxy. So that would be just generating the classes that are necessary to connect to the gateway system. Or you could go for the starter application. This is what we would like to show you here today. After I have selected this, first I have to provide a project name. So that would be 140. Then here I can only select HTML5, so that's the only add-on that I've deployed in this Eclipse. So if I would have had installed different add-ons, then different components of the add-ons, then these will show up here. So I choose subgraph 5, and then I can select what kind of application I want to generate, and that's in this case a list details application based on subgraph 5. The next screen is now I have to provide the service URL. So you remember you can check the services usually with a browser when developing the same with ABAP. And then you would be able to paste that URL here, or you define entries for a catalog. So in that case, our ZME system. And if it's the first time you access this dialog, you would have to go here and would have to maintain a connection. So we just have a look at this connection. So there is a connection name. It's automatically generated out of this server, host, and port, but later on it can be changed. Yeah, we'll use the default client, and here it's possible to save the credentials to access the backend, the gateway system. Okay, so that's fine. I had a look into the connection settings. And now I'm selecting a service. What I will do is I will take one from my gateway training, what that I would normally conduct. So I'm taking this one, and this consists simply out of two entity sets. The sales order and the sales order item, and we press next. Okay, then it's about to enter the information for the first screen. So since there are two entity sets that are marked in this time as addressable, I can select one. It's the sales order collection, so I would call it sales orders. And if I press on the plus sign on the right, I'm offered a list of fields that I can enter here. That would be in my case the buyer name, buyer ID, and lifecycle status of the sales order, and maybe the gross amount. So that's what we want to see. Then here I would be able to, or maybe I just also enter the sales order IDs, maybe even better. And now, since I've added this at the last field, I would have to move it up. And next screen would be now, I can decide to go either for a detailed screen or a list screen. And I would go for the list screen. And here I will enter the as a title sales order items. I can again select. Now I would here select everything, and yeah, just press finish. So now the application has been generated. What's necessary now? We have to publish this HTML5 application on a web server somewhere. So what I would like to show you today is how you do that, publishing this on a gateway server, an ABAP server. And the advantage of this approach is that if the HTML5 based app runs on top of the on the ABAP server, we won't run into issues when an HTML5 client does not run on the same server. So this cross origin problems. Okay, now I select this here, the project that I just created, and I can choose from the menu team and then share project. So sharing means that there is a repository that is shared so that other developers can access this as well. What I will go for the SAP UI5 ABAP repository, press next, and then I have to provide a connection. So in which SAP system is this stuff located? When I press browse, because this is a plug-in here from the colleagues from SAP UI5, you get a dialog that provides you with a list of SAP systems read from your SAP logger menu. I press OK and press next, and then I would have to log into the system. So I have to enter the client, I have to enter the username and the password. And now it's checking the system for compatibility. So sometimes it turns out that the libraries do not have the same release, on the same release. Now I'm asked where would I like to publish this, and HTML5 based applications are at SAP stored in so-called DSP applications. So we will do that, and at description, demo consumption, and then I have to provide a package because the stuff is technology-wise published on the ABAP server. Therefore, I have to provide a name of the package. In this case, I'm taking a local object. So in a productive environment, you would use some other package that might start with a Z or your own namespace or the namespace of the customer. Because I selected $10, the system tells me that there is no transport request to be selected. I press finish. Okay, that's the warning here, which other thing went. Now it's just shared, but not published yet. So we have to go into the menu again, and we have now to select Team Submit. And now the service is going to be published on the gateway server itself. I press finish, and what I'm going to do now is I will connect to that system. And what we will do is we will check SICF, the transaction that lists all the nodes in the Internet Communication Framework. And the applications are published here, SAP BC UI5, UR5, SAP, and then we are able to see the application that I just published here. If we just double click, it's just a normal node in ICF. So here you could, for example, also specify logon data. So if you, is it maybe, what kind of logon procedure are you using? Okay, we press OK. So if we just click right, there is a context menu that allows us to test the service. This will mean that the browser opens to access this service. So I have to authenticate with username and password. This now takes a while because I have just used this generated application and I'm retrieving sales orders from the backend, which are usually quite a number. And if you list them all in an HTML5-based application without providing any filtering, this can take a while. So Still waiting? So this would be something usually where you would not start with the sales orders, but you would add an additional entity set to your model, for example, the business partner, and then it would be possible that you navigate from business partner to the sales orders. Okay, now it again will take a few moments until the data will show up here, and then we would have all the data here in this HTML5-based application. That's still working. Okay, not sure why it's not working now. So what you're supposed to see would be here a link with the sales or a list of sales orders, then with an appropriate link that would allow you to navigate from one sales order to a backend system. And yeah, since it does not work now, I guess it would be best that I hand over to Volker, hopefully the generator for iOS. But no, here we are. Okay, it really took long this time, so I now can click here on the sales order ID. And we will get back the data of the different sales order items that are part of the sales order with that ID, together with the position and then the numbers you have in here. Thank you very much. Any questions?
As a reminder, to ask a question, please press *1 on your telephone keypad. There are no signals for questions at this point.
Okay, I think then I can take over. Thank you, Andre. Sorry? Okay. Yeah, my name is Volker Drees. I'm working in the same team as Andre, and I'm going to show you actually the same tool set, so the Gateway Productivity Accelerator for Eclipse. But I will show you how to generate an iOS application. And yeah, as Andre already mentioned, that has to take place on a MacBook because the actual development environment is definitely Xcode. However, you do the generation out of the Eclipse tool because that is the core tool set. And yeah, you've seen the wizard already and what we are going to use as well. So I will start my Eclipse environment. Yeah, as soon as the Eclipse comes up, I will create a new project similar to what you have seen before. I can do that via right-click and say select New Project. This offers me the dialog that you have already seen. In this case, I'm selecting the starter application. Press next. So I will use a demo service. I will also call my project that Gateway Demo. Finally, all these projects that we are doing are starting with a Z, which is not necessary here, because that is just a namespace that we typically use on the ABAP side. But yeah, people tend to use that, including me, to keep that pattern and also put a Z in front of whatever is being generated, even locally. Okay, so that's the project name. I need to choose the type of what I am going to generate. As you have seen in Andre's case, he was having only the option to choose HTML5. Depending on the installation, so when you select the update site, and I will also show you the website where you can take this from. When you do the installation, you can choose which starter application kits you want to install. There's another option which is Android. Android is a little more tricky because it requires a Android design time environment and some other things, I guess. So it's a bit more overhead to install that one. So I have chosen to not go for that. But the others you can see here. So beside HTML5 and iOS, there's also the PHP environment that you can go for, as well as Java Standard Edition. Java Standard Edition basically means that you just do a proxy generation, so you just get a handful of Java classes that allow you to to communicate with the gateway server. So this is basically meant to be used for existing projects. So when you have already a Java implementation, for instance, you can just generate the proxies into it, and then you can, inside your existing code, you can just use you basically can talk to that gateway box and fetch data, write data back, and manage the entire interaction with the gateway server. Okay, but as said, today or now we focus on iOS. I will choose iOS since iOS will generate a Xcode project. It asks me for a path where to store this. So this is not going to be a project inside Eclipse. This is going to be a project outside of Eclipse. I'm choosing my default Xcode projects folder where I'm generating this. Then I press next. So now it offers me a set of templates that I can choose. Basic is actually similar to what I just said or mentioned in regards to Java SE. That basically offers you the option to generate proxy and I guess very basic UI. The form option is meant to be used for just data input. So you just get a form of your entity set where you can just enter data and submit it right away. So there's no browse, no nothing. It's just entering data and writing it and creating the records. List detail is a bit more flexible. You can define multiple screens. You can make use of the navigation properties like you have seen in the UI5 example that Andre has shown. And workflow is one that also Andre mentioned. There is a pattern here, or there is a template available here that lets you generate a ready-to-run end-to-end workflow application out of the box just by specifying a workflow service. I think we have time. Maybe we can have a look into that one as well. But for the time being, I will choose list detail. I select next. You've seen this one as well before. So as you can see from the wizard, they are actually by definition or by design almost identical. So they work in a similar way, so that irrespective of what you're generating, you have the same look and feel. So you can define your pages, and there you just in this case you just specify the service name, and this can be done via the catalog. So the catalog is one of the standard services that sits inside each box. I have already maintained here the list of connections. In this case, there is 3 connections. We are also using ZME as the backend system, as the gateway server that we are accessing here. So expanding this one is populating the list pretty fast. It is reading a service which is called the catalog service. And this sits here as well. So you can see that it's also an OData service, obviously. And that is an essential service that the sets are using in order to retrieve the options or the possible services that are sitting on a gateway server. So this is just for your information. We will choose the gateway demo service. Another remark here. So when you do a new service development, or you develop a new service from scratch, you actually have to make sure that the service gets added to that list. So it is reading the information out of a metadata cache here locally on the device. So the first time it is empty and it's automatically populating it, but then it is fetching the data from that metadata cache. So whenever there is a new service that you are creating, like a Z service, you need to make sure that you press the refresh button for this entire system in order to reload the list of services. This, sometimes you miss that and then you wonder why your service is not showing up. Especially that is tricky if you change the service that you already are using. So because let's assume that one of these flight services is something that is an existing service that you are changing. even then you need to make sure that you refresh it. Refreshing the entire list takes a while, so I'm not doing this now for the entire system, so it takes a minute or so, depending, of course, on the number of services that are present there. But refreshing a single service is, of course, faster. So in this case, you would just select service and press the refresh button, and then it's only reading that particular service and updating the local metadata cache. So as mentioned, I will choose the gateway demo service. The beauty of this service is that it's available in each system, basically. You just need to activate it, but it's available in each gateway box as of a certain SP. I'm not sure as of which one, to be honest. I think it's SP4, if I'm not wrong. It has a little dependency on the basis release, so it could be that if you are on a very, very low basis release, that this service might not work because it requires certain utility classes. The demo service is basically using the APM dataset, which stands for Enterprise Procurement Model, and this is actually the successor of S-Flight. So those of you who got already used to S-Flight and flight collections and things like that, might also want to look for that EPM content because, it's a little maybe more recent or more updated. It actually been further maintained. So as said, long story short, we are choosing this service here, Gateway Demo. That is one that we are exposing now. Once I have selected it here, it will automatically the metadata as mentioned from the local cache, from the local environment. I could also have provided the two files, the metadata file and the service document file via the file system. That is a use case where you allow, let's say, an iOS developer who is not having access to your ERP system or your gateway system actually, because it's maybe behind a firewall or so, and that person might not be part of your company, and this person can actually start with the development without having access to the server. Of course, the service or the application would most probably not run, at least not very far, since there is no connection to the gateway server, but at least it allows the person to start with the development and take that meta information. But okay, we will stick to the one that we have chosen. For reference, you see the URL that was selected here. And when I press next, then again, the screen that was similar on the UI5 side. There is now a sequence of views that you can specify, and on each of the for each of the view, you can decide whether you want to have a list style or a detail style of view, as well as to specify the data. So the entry screen, the first screen we want to have, is supposed to be the order list. So I will provide the title, which is called order list. I want to have the list of sales orders as the entry point. So I choose sales order collection. That is my collection, and you see that this service has quite a number of collections, so it has quite some capabilities. By default, it's a list, so the first screen has to be a list that is, given by the tool. Then I can choose the fields that I want to see. On the list screens, I only choose very few fields. Once we run the application, you will see why. This is simply because there's a standard list control being used, and the more fields you add, the bigger the cells are, and from a certain number of fields on, this looks not too nice anymore. So that's the reason why we just choose very few fields. I would choose the sales order ID. I will also choose the customer ID as well as the customer name. I think the 3 fields should be fine. Also shown by Andre already, you can shuffle around the fields. So I will move sales order ID up to the first position here, to the pool position actually. And that's it for the first screen. So let's add another one. So the next one I want to have is a detail screen. So this is already defaulted here as a view type. I want to have this as an order detail. I don't want to see the business partner here, but I want to see the sales order collection. So as also mentioned by Andre, this the drop downs here, they are kind of filtered to the options that can be chosen here. So based on the metadata information, the tool knows how the entity sets and all that associations, how they relate to each other, and via that it is filtering here the drop down to the meaningful values. Good. Just pressing again on the plus button to add now the fields. I make that simple and easy. Just select all What I will deselect is some of the key fields, because every field in this specific service, everything that ends with a key is a GUID, and a 32-byte GUID doesn't look too nice, so therefore I'm just deselecting those. But okay, let's stick the others as they are. Then we add another screen saying that, okay, from the sales order detail, I want to navigate to the list of line items. So I will say line items here. This view type, as said, is a list, so I will choose list, and I need to choose line items because that's what I want to see here. And totally unexpectedly, I need to choose the fields that I want to have on my line item list. I choose to have the sales order item. I also choose to have the product ID, the product name, and let's show some numbers here, the total sum. So again, the list, in case I only want to have a few fields, I will put the sales order item at the top. And yeah, that's it as per the line item list. And last but not least, I will add screen number 4, which I want to have the line item detail. It's a detail screen, that is fine. It's not a product, but it's the sales order line item. So it's here it's saying plural, but this is the name, the entity set, and the name of the entity set is most of the cases ending with set or collections, or in this case, yeah, the plural. Therefore, although it's a detailed screen, it is picking the respective record out of this set. Good. So again, we choose the fields, we select all, we remove or get rid of the key ones to not have that too ugly. And yeah, that's it actually. So I could also add more screens if I want, according to the navigation properties that are defined, but I think 4 screens is fine for the time being. Pressing finish. This is now generating the project and opening up the Finder or the Finder. That for the Windows people is kind of the Explorer on the Mac side. Yeah, it has generated an Xcode project. Yeah, so Xcode, that is the tool, that's the development environment on the iOS side, and you see on the Eclipse side, nothing has been generated. So there is no project in Eclipse. Because also mentioned by Andre, there is, you have to use Xcode in order to do iOS development. Apple does not allow to do that in any other environment, and is also not allowing for an extension of their tool set, but therefore this has to be generated out of a different environment. Okay, double clicking on it will now launch code. First, what you see rather empty, but you can expand the structure and you see that, this is actually the content of the generated project. You can expand. You see the typical pattern here of header files and the implementation files. You see the pages that have been defined. So all these 4 pages, they show up here as well. So the sales order list and detail and so on that I have defined, they show up here. They also show up with individual zip files. These are kind of UI definitions. And I can also just quickly click on one. You can't see much because of the small resolution here. This is just to highlight the fact that it is automatically generating both UIs for an iPhone as well as for an iPad. So both work and can just be run out of the box. Yeah, there's also the service definition. So there is a subfolder, and the authentication is also bundled into a subfolder. So yeah, I think for the iOS people, the iOS developer, and I have to admit I'm not an iOS developer, they obviously know automatically, I think, how to use and how to tweak those files. Good, but yeah, let's simply run our application. So I will choose iPhone simulator because iPad would not fit onto that screen. And yeah, we'll just run it. It is now compiling the project. It is opening the simulator. The simulator is automatically starting the application, and you can see it is saying that it's signing in. This means it has taken the credentials. It's doing basic authentication, but it has taken the credentials from the previous session. So I have already tried this out obviously, and it is taking the credentials from the previous session. So otherwise, I would get a username password pop-up, like you have seen here on the left-hand side. I've shown you the authentication for that, which then look like this one here, a typical authentication screen where you then provide your username and your password. But okay, as I said, I'm already authenticated, so it was able to read the list. And again, I mean, this time it was a bit faster. I'm lucky here, but you can see the scroll bar on the right side. It is pretty tiny, so there's really a lot of sales orders in this list or in this collection, and that's what Andre was suffering from when it took quite a while to read this stuff into the U5 application. Okay, so you have you remember probably that we have defined 4 screens. So this is the first screen. There's automatically or built-in filtering. This is a local filter, so you can just do a filter here on TechUm instance, and it should actually just filter the records here. But this, as I said, just a local filter. It does not execute or perform a call to the server. So this is a little kind of nice built-in feature here. But the important part is, of course, the navigation. So now we're looking at the list of sales orders, and if I click on one of the entries, I am navigated to the details screen. And here you see all that huge set of attributes that I have defined. I can also change the orientation, so to make it landscape, and then I can see that data a bit better since the labels are pretty long. And we can scroll through this set of attributes here. And at the bottom, I have the button, so this is the second screen. I have a button to navigate to the list of line items. So again, the list style, we can go back with the orientation, and then we see more data. And now we understand why I've not chosen too many fields on this list screen, because that would just make these cells bigger. And at a certain point, you have, let's say, 20 fields or so. They anyway take all the space or all the space that is available on the screen. So again, you can imagine clicking on one of the entries navigates me to the details screen. Again, I can change the orientation if I want, and I see the details here. So no magic. You have seen that, including explanation. It was pretty fast, and without explanation, just taking the service, quickly choosing the screens and the fields allows you for definitely a rapid prototyping. Obviously, this is nothing that this application is nothing that you put into production right away, since there obviously a little round-off are necessary, but it allows you really for quick analysis of your service and to avoid using stuff in the browser. Of course, most of the developers, they are using the browser and also the gateway class, as shown by Sudhish, to verify the service and if things are working fine. But generating an application gives you a very good impression about how the service behaves and how it looks like. Okay, what I wanted to mention, and Andre, you did not mention this. I think the website on the HANA Cloud. Sorry, I didn't follow. Andre, are you still there? If not, I'll just show it, because where to actually get this toolset from is I think it is also mentioned in the slides, and I think it will be sent around. But I think the important URL is that the one that you see at the top here, https tools.hana.ondemand.com. If you open it without hash tag, then it just brings you to the home screen, and then clicking on Gateway Tools, you see actually that overview. And the reason why we are showing this to you is that this is the place where you're actually getting the stuff that you need. So it shows you the installation prerequisites. So you need to have a Java environment, obviously, and you need to install a corresponding Eclipse version, ideally latest and greatest, that helps. And last but not least, the GWPA tools itself. They will be installed via the install feature inside Eclipse. So there you need to maintain software sites, and from there you just do the installation, and that is pretty straightforward. And as mentioned before or earlier, when you do that or perform that installation, you can choose the tools and tools you want to install, like if you want to go for iOS or not, if you want to go for Android or not, and so on. So that should be pretty easy. However, there is a community where all the blogs are mentioned, and this is also what we discussed during the session. I think that this is a good area where to find information, additional information, latest, greatest blogs, post questions, get in contact with the people. Andre, for instance, you can see here, was also posting something, and that gives you a good chance to see and get latest information. And last but not least, there's a documentation link that navigates you obviously to the documentation page. And there you find your master guide, installation and configuration guide. So it helps you to or explain the step-by-step procedure, how to actually install the GWPA tool set. And then, of course, the developer guide as such, where the tools are explained and you get an understanding about how to use them. And what you've seen already today, obviously, Sudhish has shown you the OData modeler, and Andre and myself will diving into the consumption tools here. Okay, since there is a little bit of time left, I would quickly also show you the workflow generation, because that was asked, or there was a question in the first session. Let's just stop this one here, just stop the running project here in the Xcode environment, and we can actually close the simulator and close Xcode, and we'll jump back to Eclipse, and we'll just quickly now create a new project, start application again, and call it workflow. So again, you see the pattern. We stick to that, never change the running system. It's again iOS. I will choose my lovely default path. It's Xcode project here, and in this case, I will choose workflow. And what I need to provide now, again, it's the same dialog, but I will not need to specify any screens, because workflow is pretty kind of coming out of the box. The only thing that it asks for is the service. So it requires a certain pattern. So there is standard flow services, and for instance, there is a WF service. It comes out of the box. It, like the gateway demo service, just needs to be activated. The reason why it's asking actually for a service is you can, as you know, you can extend existing services. You can derive a Z service from an existing service and add new entity sets. You can add new properties, and that is the reason actually why this tool set is asking for the service, because just in case you have chosen to extend an existing service, you might want to use that one in the application. So, but I have not extended something. In this case, I just stick to the standard workflow service. I choose OK. And again, it shows up the details of it. And I'm already more or less done, because there is no next, but I only can press finish. So I said there is no need to specify a screen flow, because that is out of the box defined. I'm again getting a workflow. I'm again getting a Xcode project. I'm double-clicking on the Xcode project as such. It opens the environment. Again, we could look at the details, but I think the interesting part here is that we run it. We run it again in the iPhone simulator. I press the play button. It is doing a local build. It is deploying it into the simulator. It is starting the application. It is signing in automatically, because it is reusing the credentials that I specified before, and fetching the work items that are sitting there. So I've just generated 2 samples here. There is a verification workflow for the workflow people of you. You probably know what this is. And I've created a little Z workflow. When I click on this, I see some information about it, priority, and so on. I could choose look at the description. That is a generic decision task, so therefore the text is obviously generic, but I'm getting with this. The description here, and I can take a decision, and the decisions are read from the maintained decisions, and so I can now choose out of the existing decisions that I have maintained, and of course I like this one. I can also provide a text here and say finally continue to say yes, and this one is then updating the work item collection, and is actually sending this really back to the backend. And on the backend in my business workflow inbox, or in my business workplace, this work item has now disappeared. It has been completed. So this is a kind of an out-of-the-box application that is also available in some of the tool sets. So it is available in iOS, as you have seen. I think it's also available in Android so far. And that just allows you, in case you are looking into a workflow service, to have a little end-to-end running application that is exposing workflow, and you can consume and decide on them. I think that's it mainly. So yeah, we are a little early, so that allows us to extend the question and answers section. So, operator, would you kindly open the lines for questions?
Yes, thank you. As a reminder, if you'd like to ask a question at this point, please press the star or asterisk key followed by the number 1 on your telephone keypad, and please ensure the mute function on your telephone is switched off to allow your signal to reach our equipment. Again, please press star 1 to ask a question.
Thanks, Martin.
As a reminder, to ask a question, please press star 1. There are no signals for telephone questions from the telephone lines.
Okay, I hope it was not too confusing. Yeah, actually, I think you have the contact information, so whenever there's additional questions or topics, you can definitely go for the community and raise the topic there or get in contact with us via email. If there are no further questions, I would hand back to Sudesh to wrap up and conclude today's session. Thank you.
Okay, there is one question on the chat.
Okay, I have to check the chat.
It says that developer tools for Visual Studio, are they integrated with the Accelerator plugin or are they separate tools? So,
yeah, the Visual Studio tools, some older tool set that was available on SCN. I'm not sure if it's still available there. It was a standalone plugin into Visual Studio. But other than that, Microsoft is offering a tool set. I think LightSwitch is the name of it, that allows you to generate things. And from SAP, we also have something planned here, but this, as far as I remember, is not yet available. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. Martin, is there any other questions on the line?
We have no signals for telephone questions.